Okay, so let's just pace from side to side. So just going down, getting down into the legs, but also with this feeling that almost that you could sort of pick things off the ground. So imagine hunter-gatherers, you know, we do a lot of work imagining the hunter, and now just imagine the gatherer, you know, they're sort of walking around, crouched down all day. Imagine how strong their legs and their backs are. Yeah, so we can pick things. So just imagine you are reaching down with the hand and wrapping your hand around a fruit and lifting it. So you want the foot to feel the same way. It's extending the toes as it goes down, toes first, and then clutching. And that's drawing you into the foot. Okay, now just standing. Okay, I just feel, you know, the mistake we tend to make is that when we stand, we basically have the same posture above the legs that we would have if we were sitting. So imagine when you're sitting down and you're eager for contact. So you arch the back, your tail sticks back a little, and you present yourself. Now, when we're standing, we want to do that, but from the ground, not from here. Yeah? So basically, my whole body has become the spine. And my spine, my legs, which are an extension of my spine, start at the ground. They rear up. So you've still got this S shape, but it's the whole body rather than just the spine. So you're naturally getting down into the ground with your posture rather than being perched upon these legs. So this is what's difficult, because of course the legs have to be really quite strong. You know, so the arch, which is the lower back, you know, it's normally curved like this, isn't it? Sort of this way. So that is now my legs. So my legs are now behaving as my lower back would if I was sitting down. So my legs are supplying the strength which my waist whips into my upper body. Even if I'm not turning it, even not turning the waist, it's still this part that's pulling the energy from the legs up and out like a snake that's going to strike. Okay, now just feeling gravity acting upon your dantian, upon your center of gravity. Yeah, so gravity is basically just a linear pull towards the center of the earth. It's a vector. So if you had a stone and you dropped it, it would fall in a straight line towards the ground. So this is being pulled down in a straight line. but my strength, which is coming up my body from the ground to support that, to stop it from falling, is very much of the shape of my body. It's very much of me. So it sort of wriggles up in this sort of twisty, tortuous way. So even though quantitatively the two forces are the same, qualitatively they're quite different. And it's that that enables us to distinguish them and feel them both. So there's a linear pull down and there's a twisty, turny thrust up from two limbs that combine to twist around into my spine and then untwist into my arms. Remember when we used to make little men from pipe cleaners when we were kids? So the body's very much like that. Yeah, and so meditation is basically just looking at the mind. So what sort of mind would I need to have to be naturally of the earth, to be naturally connected to the ground that's supporting me? And when you get into that, the earth becomes a natural drain of the anxious mind. So when you're connected to the ground, to the earth, you don't have a noisy mind. It's like all this excess electrical activity is just earthed, it's drained away. And so if that's not happening, if you are still chattering away, it's because somewhere there's a break. Somewhere you've cut off from the ground, you've frozen. And you're blocking this process of sinking and rising. Okay, and now let's just bring the feet up a bit and just turn. So just a few of the warm-up exercises. So we've established our link to gravity, and now we have the turning, the centrifugal and the centripetal. Yeah, you can sort of imagine that the arms are really long and that they're dragging along the ground. Yeah, so you're really being drawn down into the legs. Yeah, so when you sit in meditation on a cushion on the floor, then your dantian is very close to the earth. And you really feel it. And then when you stand up to do a bit of Tai Chi, from having done that, you don't want your dantian to come up. You don't want to break that connection that you've established with the earth. And so the legs have to remain as bent as possible. So you don't want the legs to be a barrier that you have introduced between you and the earth. You want them to be a channel. So feel the Min Meng behind you. Okay, and then just back to riding horse. So again, just coming back to gravity, so the dantian being pulled down and the legs pushing up. So this feeling that the legs come all the way up to your shoulders and you sink all the way through your legs. So they no longer stop here at the hips. They come all the way up to your armpits. And now let's try the second warm-up exercise. So as you sink into the leg, just use this hand like you're scooping a handful of earth and just bringing it into your heart. You know, so you really are dipping down to the ground. So just imagine how your leg would have to concertina to actually allow your hand to scrape the ground. So, Okay, and then back. So again, heavy down chin. So this is a straight line, and now feel the S shape of the whole body. So the bent legs are creating this curve, and then your upper back is presenting this curve. So energy is naturally whipped up from the ground and there's no break here. So you really have to just relax the lower back into the buttocks, down the hamstrings, and keep some tautness here. Okay, and now let's just breathe with it. So for me, you know, the main problem nowadays with our being is that there's we lack tone. Yeah. So we lack natural tension. We have lots of anxious tension, lots of incorrect tension, but we lack that natural tension which would allow us to resonate. So it's like a resilience. So here, just allowing the breathing to work the body. Okay, now making the small hole for the air. So I suck air in through a small hole and I blow it out through a small hole. So I really have to work to bring the air in. And I really have to work to squeeze it out. So as you breathe in, you're pulling the diaphragm down. So the problem with breathing is that when we breathe in, that's when we tend to disconnect from the ground, because it's sort of bringing our energy up a bit. And so we want to feel that downward element of the in-breath. My diaphragm is pulling down, and I can just link that into my lower back and let that pass through my legs. And then here, this is just like a relaxation phase to start. And then here. So something here is pulling down on the in-breath. And then this naturally flattens out on the out-breath. Because it's the belly pulling in to support the lower back, yeah? back into riding horse. So the tone that we want, it's like an unforgetfulness. Yeah? You know, think they say the curse of the mediocre student is forgetfulness. You know, so the mediocre student forgets. You know, they're at class, the teacher gives an inspiring talk, and they think, "Wow, that's amazing!" And by the time they get home, they've forgotten all about it. Yeah. So what we're trying to establish all the time are these continuous threads. And it's very much against the modern grain, which is all about partitioning the things in your life. So you exercise, but there are times for exercise, and then times when you can just forget all that and just do something else. And it just doesn't really work. Yeah? There has to be like a stretched continuity. Because that's like the guitar string, you know, the taut string that will resound, will resonate with energy from the environment. You know, so we're too flabby, we're too slack to actually sing the song that we're meant to. Yeah. Okay, now let's just feel this. Yeah, so when you're this sort of one S shape from the ground, yeah, then this part of your body becomes this sort of C, this C shape. So like a cave with a receding hollow chest, which is what they talk about in the classics. And just feel, you know, so you are here, yeah? You reside in the heart, and there's this sort of sense that you're receding. You're falling backwards, and the arms are reaching forwards to balance that fall. Okay, and now let's just go up and down a little bit. Slowly, in slow motion. So just letting gravity pull me, and then just very gently applying my own strength to bring myself up, and just feeling the difference between this very uniform downward and this up that is sort of creeping through your body. That's it. Yeah, so the up is very much of your legs. Yeah, so here, and you have to wriggle a bit. You have to turn side by side a bit to get it to come up. Otherwise, it just feels all blockish and stupid. So just trying to feel the sequence, you know, that something in me has to decide to start pushing, and then I feel my legs filling with strength, and then there's like a wave that comes up my body, and my body catches it up eventually. So just feeling the energy. So it very much is a wave that comes up from the ground through the legs. So So it's like you're bending down and you're picking up like a weight that has an elastic connection to the ground. And so it actually gets harder and harder the higher up you come, because that elastic is pulling more and more strongly. And then it's a relief to just let the legs bend again. So like a gatherer, you're picking something off the ground. So just think of those, those African ladies, gathering with a baby strapped to your back. So you've got like an extra 10 kilos. Ooh. And then one more, down. And up. And then again into, ooh. So the closer you go down to the ground, the thicker the energy becomes. So just feel the strength of your legs constantly pumping energy into your upper body. So rather than just locking out and letting you sit atop them, they're whoa. Okay, and now let's just bounce. So now just really, again, just getting a spring in the leg. So everything is bleeding. Your upper body is bleeding into your lower body. Your lower body is bleeding into your upper body. Your feet are bleeding into the ground. The ground is bleeding up into you. So everything is communicating with everything. again, just feel the arms heavy, stretching down to the ground. Like you're carrying 2 dumbbells and it's just really pulling at the shoulders. Ooh. And then just alternating. So it'll pull you from side to side a little bit, but you're trying to stay in the middle, but you're allowing that pull from the weight of the arms. And so your legs are trying to keep you in the middle and your arms are trying to pull you side to side. And you're just allowing that play. So, great. Okay. And now just to lighten it up and loosen the legs a little bit, let's just pace, like you're staying on the front of the foot. So we've been doing a lot of rooting through the heel, and now we're just coming off the heels, just feeling it bringing a springiness into the legs and the feet. Yeah, so your sacrum is really heavy and your knees are really light. Your knees want to fly upwards. Okay. And now let's just try just loosening the spine a bit. So using that heart. So in this heart qigong, you know, the one where we do this and then we do this, you're just inscribing 2 hearts. You know, so there's one heart from my dantian up like this, yeah. And then there's another bigger heart that reaches right up, and I'm endeavoring to get it to sort of go into the ground, yeah. Okay, so let's try. So just reaching forwards and then letting everything fall into this deep valley, which is the heart. And then it fountains out. And here, just really opening up those upper vertebrae. And then letting the hands drop as though into the ground. And then up and in. So feel that real deep drop into the heart. It feels like it's dropping, 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 dropping. It feels like you've come down to here, but actually you have stopped in the heart. And then it comes up and out. Yeah, so we're just sort of loosening all the vertebrae in the spine. So if you think about the spine, you know, where it starts at the bottom, it's really thick and chunky and strong. And then gradually as it goes up, the vertebra gets smaller and smaller. And we're just trying to loosen all of that up so it can behave like a whip and transmit energy. Yeah? So that's it. And now let's start turning with it. So just turning to the side, just be a little bit, and then turning back, and then turning to the other side, and then back. So it just lends this sort of swimmy, fluid quality. So it's not just a physical thing. It's not just that I'm using my arms. I'm using my mind. So I'm allowing a ripple of optimism to flow up my spine. So the arms take the shape they do because of the energy that's preceding them. So here's a whee. And for that, you just need visualizations. You know, you just need to be able to visualize something like a fountain of sort of sparkly water, like a fountain of champagne or something. Yeah? So here, ooh. Pink champagne. So it's effusive, ebullient, bubbly way. So the difficulty is the head, because you've got this beautiful structure, which is the spine, all these little pieces, that's gradually getting finer and finer as it gets up. And then you've got this bloody great head sitting on top of it that fucks everything up. Yeah? And so what we need to do is separate the plates in the head. So just imagine your head's really sort of fluid. You've got all these plates, but they can all move relative to each other a little bit. And the head is pumping. Yeah, so the cranium has a pump, which is just slightly slower than the breathing. So this sort of movement is really good because it harmonizes with that cranial pump. So my head is expanding at the same time that my arms are. And that's helping all the plates separate a little bit. One more. So. And now let's just bring it back to riding horse and just feeling that. So from the ground. And then this head on top is sort of really oozy, woozy. It's sort of floating around and all the little plates are pumping and expanding and contracting. So you feel a bit drunk or a bit high. I thoroughly recommend drugs every now and then, once every 6 months. Just to remind you that there's a reality that's quite different than the one you normally inhabit. Yeah, so we're just trying to turn the whole body, but especially the spine, into this antenna that's collecting messages. So it's moving all the time, and I don't know why. It's not my job. So my job is just to allow it. It's just to get rid of the tension that's stopping me from being a proper human being. And just being mindful all the time that the earth is aching to take your noise. It really wants to swallow up your tension. And the reason it's not happening is because you're blocking it, you're holding back. Yeah? Okay, and now let's just try a bit of the backwards and forwards one. So just here now, just feeling the full and empty, full, empty. So it's almost like you're allowing your body to split down the middle into two. You're still in the middle, but you're almost in this sort of no man's land, in this sort of intermediate zone. And just feel the yin-yang symbol. You've got the white and the black parts, and each has a little eye, a little dot of the other. So if we take the empty to be white and the full to be black, yeah, then as I empty this leg here, it becomes white, but there's this little core of black that sort of leaps out. That's like a lure that leaps out and attaches to the person, like you're fishing, yeah? Like you're fly fishing, yeah? And the fly drops down and the salmon takes it, and then you whip it back straight into the keep net, straight into this hole that is housing the fish. Yeah? So as this becomes empty, there's this core of hardness that leaps out, and then as I draw it in, that core becomes the whole, it becomes white, and then the rest of it is black. Yeah? So it's changing. The white is becoming black, but in the core as well. And that's yielding. Now, yielding is a white fish with a black eye becoming a black fish with a white eye. so it's like that emptiness escapes and carries with it this little eye of black, which then behaves as the bait to draw the person in. Because as itself, emptiness is nothing, it's ungraspable, you can't catch it, but so it has to carry something. Like your hand, you can think of it as being your hand. My hand is being carried on this wave of emptiness. And it catches something, and then I have to draw it back into the hole in the center of my fullness. Ooh. And again, just feeling the ground, almost like you have no legs. Like this hand can dip down into the ground, and this hand can dip down into the ground. Like a gorilla. They have really long arms, or an orangutan, they've got even longer arms. And then now let's try some on the other side. Yeah, so make sure your front foot is pointing in a little bit. It's almost like you're sort of riding horse to the corner, and then you just turn and just let the toes go out a little bit. And just feel that outside edge. So when you have the toes angled in a little bit, it's just easier to feel the outside edge, because as you come forward, you're pushing into it. So here. Yeah. And again, you've still got the swimmy head, the woozy head. It's like, woo. Okay, great. And now let's just get the figure of 8 going around the hips a bit. Yeah, just allowing both hands to go with it. So feel how they naturally turn as you go around the edge. And then just begin to let the hands separate. One goes up and one goes down a bit. So one hand is going into your foot and the other's coming up at the side. So it becomes a version of waving hands in the clouds. That's it. Yeah, and it just sort of becomes like the figure of 8 exercise, basically. In like a natural way. Okay. And now just using the figure of 8 to bring the ward off out. So just digging down into this foot, up the leg, up the spine, across the shoulder, and down the arm. 1, 2, 3. Okay, So now let's just bring it back. Yeah, so just feel the pathways through the body. So it's coming up this leg, across the sacrum, up the spine, and down the arm. So it's a really snaky path. And the same with this one. Yeah. So that's the structure of the body. And we want to feel that our thigh bones especially, and the hip bones, are just extensions of the spine. So I don't want my legs to stiffen. There's always this sort of elastic play between them. Yeah. And then we'd like that to come into the head. The head's, ooh, it's almost like you've got like a malleable head and you can squeeze it into different shapes. And if you take the right drugs, it'll feel like that. Yeah, you'll really, it will become that. Yeah. So, so there's just a continuous flow from the ground up the body, all the way to the fingertips and the top of the head. And now let's just bring it back to attention. So again, just feeling the head suspended. And all of your flesh just hanging like the overcoat that's hanging off the coat hanger. Yeah, this is just, and you could just sort of melt down, you could just melt into the ground. So there's no block here, there's no sort of break in the hips. And the spine is very much like a twine that's made from the two threads of the legs that are twisted around each other. Yeah, so there should be so much movement within you that when you look at yourself, you're shocked to see that you're still. Yeah, because there's so much going on inside. Not just inside, but between you and the ground especially. You know, it's like there's an ivy twining up each leg and coiling around your torso and then flowering above you. And the arms reach all the way down to the ground. So your fingers are actually going into the earth. Okay, great. So let's finish.